speaking of Taika, I think that's a good segue into, we got a very little tease about this, like no mention of Rian Johnson's next Star Wars project, but we got confirmation that Taika Waititi is in fact hard at work in the proverbial spice mines, working on the next entry in the galaxy far, far away. And I'm curious, what do you want to see from this? We got him to see how he would play in that sandbox to a certain degree with the Mandalorian, but is this going to be Jojo Womprat? Like, what can we expect, you think, from Taika?
Ooh, I mean, the thing that I really love about Taika is his reference points are so clearly like his passion points. Like I feel like when we have a tendency to look at outer space and the way we like shoot that, it tends to be like a little bit colder, a little bit bluer, a little bit more silver, but when Taika looks at outer space, I feel like he sees Buck Rogers. He sees like a more colorful, technicolor, weird playground, because he doesn't really just like, especially when you like look at Thor Ragnarok and you look at how much like Willy Wonka is injected into that universe. His reference points are so eclectic that I feel like any handling of Star Wars is going to be so uniquely his.
Yeah, it's like, especially with Thor Ragnarok, for example, like you
Mm-hmm.
see like 80s metal cover, like metal album covers, and you
Yes.
see like 70s like sci-fi and fantasy novel covers brought to life in the most spectacular way. But he still grounds that with like the sense of gravitas that you would expect, like those scenes where you see Valkyrie
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of the Valkyries riding to attack Hela. It's like a Renaissance painting where you just have these like striking moments. So I think we've seen like that Taika, clearly Academy Award winning director Taika
Mm-hmm.
Waititi, clearly knows what he's doing, and I'm excited to see how he's going to bring more of himself to the galaxy far, far away and give us something that is brand new. But
Mm-hmm.
before Taika's movie, we have another movie coming out Christmas 2023, which is a real date and not a prequel to Cyberpunk 2077. It is going to be from director Patty Jenkins, who you may know from Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 1984 fame. She's going to be giving us a fighter pilot story in the form of Rogue Squadron, which you may remember from the N64 game or the comic books or the novels. But this is not going to be based on any of that. It's going to be a brand new story about this iconic unit. So what do you want to see from this Rogue Squadron movie? Because clearly this is going to be maybe not. Maybe it isn't going to be in the Skywalker saga, but for it sounds like it probably is going to be, if I had to wager a guess. But Rosie, what would you like to see from Patty Jenkins giving us the Star Wars fighter pilot movie?
I am really interested in this because this feels like a fever dream for someone who grew up on the EU and the books and the video games and everything else. Like this is the kind of stuff we write about in pieces, and we go, oh, like this could influence. So the fact that they did this, I really loved watching her video talking about how her dad was a fighter pilot. I struggle slightly in both superhero movies and Star Wars movies with the militarization aspect, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't do it for me. So the idea of it being a fighter pilot movie doesn't necessarily speak to me in any emotional way. But the description did say it's all about a young group of up and coming fighter pilots like finding their space in this world, and like and so on that case, I can find like a good group of fictional children to love who are going to be learning, finding their way. And it gives us a space to learn about Star Wars, kind of like what Claudia Gray did with Lost Stars, where you met these new characters against the backdrop of the original trilogy. I'm very excited for that. And I love I love that new Power Rangers movie. And mostly it was just because I love those kids who are in the Power Rangers. And so that can really draw me in. And I love the idea that even though Rogue Squadron means so much to fans and the two words like immediately give you different visions of your connection to the books or the games, I think it is the right thing to do to basically use it as a jumping off point for something new and different. And I hope that it will be something inclusive and exciting and include kind of characters that we haven't seen before in Star Wars. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because my brain is broken, the moment you said young class of fighter pilots, I immediately thought of the words Endor's Game, and I can't be alone with that thought. But I am curious how they're going to bring this in, because I do think that Patty Jenkins does a very good job of sort of threading the needle on these gigantic kind of mass market concepts and ideas, like being able to make a Wonder Woman movie that is palatable to all audiences while like still setting against the backdrop of something as horrific as World War I think that is is a unique challenge in and of itself, but I'm excited to see what she can do when she has a kind of broader canvas on which to paint, because unlike Wonder Woman, a character with so many decades of existing canon and so much expectation being foisted onto that character from fans, I think that with Rogue Squadron, and especially I made it clear up front, you're doing a new story, you have a lot more wiggle room and opportunity and hopefully a chance to experiment. And the fact that she is the child of someone who was a fighter pilot, that is such a unique perspective to bring to it. So I'm curious, Hector, what do you want to see from this Rogue Squadron movie?
I love that announcement video. I thought that was great. My first thought was, man, can we get her to produce a Green Lantern movie, Warner Brothers? Come on. Maybe she's got a take. Come on, let's try to make Green Lantern work. Or are we just abandoning it? I'm excited that, to me, the way that I've most closely connected with this side of Star Wars thus far has been Poe Dameron in his little cockpit doing his thing. Love Poe and little glimpses where he gets to be like the galaxy's best pilot. Super cool. But I was also raised in the era that Rosie was describing earlier, but I didn't have that much EU stuff. I wasn't connected to Star Wars as much then, but I had friends who were super into the novels, the games. They were all about Rogue Squadron. I'm excited that this movie is finally going to get me potentially like an entry point into some of that stuff and that kind of story. So we'll see.